Today on Historia Gaia.
When we think of a leader or a dictator, most of us would think it is pretty obvious that the trait or character is associated with the male gender. However, women have in the past proven that power and brutality have nothing to do with gender. The history of women and leadership goes way back, even though some communities were initially against women taking up such positions. In some countries, the rise of empowered women who were confident to step up as rulers began as early and had been normalized within the first 10 years of the 21st century. Over the years, women have been perceived as nurturers and peacemakers, but this does not cut across the entire female species. Some have shown such a brutal character when they are in power or during times of war. On this episode, we would in no particular order consider 10 most brutal female rulers to have ever lived.
1. Empress Julia Agrippina of Rome. People knew her as the Empress of Poison. Julia murdered her own husband by poisoning, and it is on record that she got rid of all the men in her life, including attempts to kill her own son. After poisoning her husband, Julia got married to her uncle Emperor Claudius, whom she also killed. Before executing her evil plan, Julia convinced Emperor Claudius to adopt her son Nero and name him the successor. Julia ruled in her son's name, who was still a teenager at that time. Empress Agrippina of Rome was later banished and executed by her son Nero after she made several attempts to kill him.
2. Warrior Queen Zenobia of Palmyra. She is known as the Warrior Queen of the Middle East, a title she earned after conquering Syria, Lebanon, Palestine and other provinces. Queen Zenobia had a strong army, and she once went against the Roman Empire by personally leading her army into war. Her army was destroyed in Antioch by a Roman leader, Aurelius, and was taken in as prisoner, which led her to commit suicide.
3. Empress Wu Zetian of China. For 4,000 years, Imperial China had only one female ruler. This record was dissolved after a cultural revolution by Chairman Mao. Empress Wu Zetian, a Chinese sovereign who interrupted the rule of the Tang dynasty and restored the Zhou dynasty. Her beauty, intelligence, and intriguing mind seduced both the Emperor Tazong and his son Li Ji. Concubine with a serpent's heart and wolf's nature overcame all obstacles in her life. How, one might ask? The list of her vicious acts and ruthless deeds is endless. Perhaps being the first and only female emperor in Chinese history is too great a burden to bear. Her right hand was the spies, in other words, secret police that carried out interrogations, tortures, and killings of her potential rivals. She even set the copper mailboxes in front of the government buildings in order to inspire people to file a complaint against one another. Wu massacred vast part of the imperial family because she got scared of losing her power.
4. Queen Tamar of Georgia. Being a saint and a church person, we might have thought that Queen Tamar of Georgia was holier than thou. However, history tells a different narrative. Tamar was a saint of the Georgian Orthodox Church, and she took over her father's throne after his death in 1184 AD. She murdered all clerics who questioned her ruling and replaced them with lawyers. The queen also banished her husband, Russian Prince Yuri, who was an excellent military commander, for being a womanizer.
5. Isabella I of Spain, also known as Isabella the Catholic. What must one do to be remembered as an evil ruler? Is persecution of thousands good enough? Isabella I, also called Isabella of Castile and Aragon, is one of the most evil female rulers in history. A self-proclaimed purifier of Roman Catholic faith who, together with her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon, is responsible for the expulsion of more than 40,000 Jews who refused to convert to Christianity. Of course, they had the Pope's blessing, since they were given the title, the Catholic monarchs. Moors suffered the same destiny, considering the 1492 fall of the Muslim Kingdom of Granada to the Catholic monarchs' hands, thus ending the Reconquista. For infidelities who stayed in Spain, they initiated Spanish Inquisition, the tribunal of Holy Office that operated in Spain and all Spanish colonies and which was responsible for torture and death of more than 2,000 Jews. Therefore, her other deeds, like sponsoring Columbus's first voyage, remains a little bit in the shadow of her controversial fight for the supremacy of her religion.
6. Queen Mary I of England. There is a belief that the wicked never go unpunished, and this statement is proved by Queen Mary's history. Mary became ruler of England after the death of her brother King Edward. As a staunch and extremist Roman Catholic, she burned 300 Protestants and ordered others to be exiled. She is also known as Bloody Mary. This is because of her bloodthirsty disposition. Years later, karma caught up with her, and although she got married to King Philip of Spain, Mary could not conceive an heir and she later died of ovarian cancer.
7. Countess Elizabeth Bathory of Hungary. She was one of the feared rulers and believed to be untouchable because she hailed from a distinguished family. She was charged with the murder of several women and she reportedly used to bath in their blood with a strange belief that this could help her maintain her youth. Her crimes ended in 1610 when she found herself on the wrong side of the nobles and it was discovered that she used to kidnap, torture and kill their daughters. This led to her prosecution and imprisonment in a castle where she was later found dead.
8. Catherine de' Medici. It's not a mistake to define Catherine, the next one in our list of most evil female rulers in history, as a pretty ambitious mom, considering that 3 of her sons were kings of France and 2 daughters were married to one. Not to mention that she had 5 children more in her marriage with the Duke of Orléans, later known as King Henry II of France. For 26 years of their marriage, she lived in a shadow of his mistress Diane de Poitiers. Nevertheless, she never gave up, and one might say that her time has come after the sudden death of her husband. After that, the Italian gal from Florence, well-educated and thick-skinned due to life without parents, became the most powerful woman of the 16th century France. During 3 decades of her power, she ruled through her sons as regent and the closest advisor. The Nostradamus and the Ruggieri brothers were her pals, and therefore some associate her suspicious acts with the occult. Although responsibility for starting the French Wars of Religion in 1562 cannot be attributed to her, the Huguenot massacre of St. Bartholomew can. Despite what some historians are saying in her defense, the woman was in charge through her son Charles IX, at the time. More than 3,000 Protestants were killed that week, starting the night of the 23rd to the 24th of August 1572. The prosecution was spreading through the France late into the autumn. To make things worse, the massacre started only a few days after her youngest daughter's wedding with Huguenot, Henry III of Navarre. It's not hard to imagine that a vicious mother planned all this and thus lured Huguenots to come to her doorstep. So, there's nothing left to be said except that she was a product of selfish ambition, a cold and calculating woman who used her children as a tool in gaining the power and legitimacy. And now, let's see who else we have in our list of most evil female rulers in history.
9. Empress Zhao Fein and consort Zhao Heed. Until now we have witnessed how vicious one woman can be. Now, the time has come to see how malicious 2 women can be. So, meet 2 evil sisters, the older Empress Zhao Fein and the younger consort Zhao Heed that appear on our list of most evil female rulers in history. It wouldn't be wrong to say that those 2 beauties dazzle the great Emperor Cheng of the Chinese Han dynasty. Considering their humble origins, they accomplished a lot, becoming the imperial consorts. As they set their feet on the court, the blood spilling begun. In pursuance of power and throne, they removed Empress Zhu and consort Ban, accusing them of witchcraft. Soon after, Fein became empress. However, when Fein gained the title, she lost Emperor's affection in favor of her sister Heed. Once Fein's initial jealousy was not on their way, the sisters buried their hatchets. During the next decade, they had many unsuccessful attempts to give the emperor an heir. They even committed adultery with other men in order to get pregnant. To make things worse, they were the masterminds of many tactics that included abortions, poisonings, and assassinations of other emperors' concubines and their infants. Even the sudden death of Emperor Cheng is under the veil of secret. Allegedly he died from a stroke, but the story behind is that consort He'd gave him a dose of aphrodisiac that he couldn't handle. Consort Zhao He'd killed herself shortly after. Empress Zhao Fein had a similar destiny, considering that she also committed suicide, after being demoted to a commoner due to the exposure of her and her sister's evil deeds.
10. Ranavalona I, Marina Queen, Ramavo. It's not easy to find right words to describe the rule of Ranavalona I, the Queen of Madagascar. That's up next in our list of most evil female rulers in history. Perhaps lunatic and erratic would do the job. However, since history is written by the victors, European colonialist in this case, we could give a girl a break. After all, she has preserved cultural heritage by insisting on tradition and by banishing Christianity far from the island. But where's smoke, there's fire. So, let's take a peek into the 19th century Madagascar and life of one controversial queen. Our list of her deeds begins with the ridiculous 50,000 participants buffalo hunt, organized by Ranavalona herself, where roads and camps were built on the way, and a total of 10,000 people died due to starving and disease. In addition, no buffalo was harmed. Next in the line is some pretty gruesome method of execution that involves flaying your skin off while you're alive. Other methods were equally horrible. Also, it seems that she didn't have a good relationship with her in-laws, nor with the rest of her family, including her husband. Considering his death at the age of 36, and shortly after her coronation, one can assume that she has done her dirty work well. Her former lover is next speared because he didn't want to do the ridiculous test of faithfulness, which included swallowing and throwing up chicken skins. To all appearances, she favored French fashion and men won especially despite her animosity toward Europeans. Jean Laborde, her favorite slave, is a mastermind of the Industrial Revolution that resulted in the production of weaponry, ammunition, and gunpowder. That's how she kept the French and British forces off the island. Moreover, Ravalona's restoration of slavery, which was the foundation of the state's economy, caused many deaths. More than 50% of the island's population died due to the life under poor circumstances. As for Ranavalona, she died peacefully, in sleep, at the age of 83. And now, this is our list of most evil female rulers in history.